All right, today I'm gonna walk you through a real Morby-style deal. Not a TikTok version, not a trust me bro spreadsheet, an actual deal with actual numbers. 2 closings, real lender rules, and real risk. This is a deal in California. $950,000 purchase price. And yes, the buyer gets paid at closing. But here's the most important part people miss. Getting paid at closing doesn't mean the deal is good. It means the structure is compensating somebody for risk. Today I'm going to show you exactly where the money comes from, why it's allowed, and why this deal is fragile, even though the math works. If you ever heard Morby deals are fake or the numbers don't make sense, this video will clear that up. So, what people think the Morby method is, let's start with that big misunderstanding. Most people think Morby method means no money down, infinite leverage, free money, and the seller just magically agrees. It's not what's happening. Morby method is a real capital stack engineering using seller carry, often with 2 closings to move money and do it legally. Nothing here violates math, nothing here creates money, it just reorders who brings what and when. And that reordering creates execution risk, which is why buyers sometimes get paid. So, let's write this down. We got California, $950,000, single family home. Write that as well. And what we're gonna have is a DSCR loan with 75% LTV. That puts that number that the DSCR lender is gonna bring $712,000 or $712,500. And the seller is willing to carry $360,000. So that's seller financing that piece there. So this total debt goes above the actual purchase price, brings us to $1,072,500. And that's what we call over leverage. This property is over leveraged. I apologize if you cannot see, there's a ring from my light here. We'll work on that. So our total leverage on this property is 113%. This is assuming that it will appraise for $950,000. So this is the right way. It should make you uncomfortable. That's the point. We are over leveraging a property. To do this, we've got 113 combined loan to value after closing. Doesn't mean it's fake. It means the lender is underwriting income, not price, and the seller is carrying the risk. So where does the money actually come from? Let's walk through this on a per closing basis. Now that we have the gist of this capital stack. So our purchase price is $950. Our DSCR is gonna be 712.5. And the buyer or their transactional lender can bring the down payment, obviously, between these two, which we have 25% down payment. That's $237,500. So this will be from the buyer, and that completes your capital stack there. On the closing, the additional fees that you need to bring, we're gonna estimate of the DSCR loan that we're looking at about 5% of this number as closing, origination, assuming there's no agent or anything like that involved. We have $35,625. Then we'll say closing 5%. All right, this is what's gonna happen in the first transaction. The total amount of money that is brought in is $985,625. And this number right here gets taken, $35,625 comes to the attorney, goes to the originator, the lender, points, broker, things like that. That all comes out there. This money in the first transaction goes to a couple different places. And we know that the seller wants a down payment or cash to seller at closing of $560,000. So in this transaction, $560,000 goes to seller. This 35 right here goes to lender, broker, attorney. And that means we will have additional money in this transaction, which is $360,000. This is what we're gonna call a holdback. There's a lot of different ways to say that. That amount right there, it could be a different legal terminology. I rely on a transaction coordinator to handle this. So that's gonna be closing number 1. Now, what happens in the second part of the closing? This is the holdback explained. That $360,000 is the down payment plus extra seller carry. It's not paid to the seller, it's sent to either a second escrow or a second closing attorney. And this is where the Morby deals either work clearly or they blow up completely, because this is where the lender rules, escrow language, and title coordination all matter. So how does the buyer get paid? Now we move on to closing number 2. This is closing or escrow number 2. And we're gonna add in a couple fees here. So on the $360,000 that we get here, the transactional lender or the buyer, whoever brought this money here, gets their money back. Now, a transactional lender will fund your closing costs, your origination, things like that, as long as there's enough to kick it all out over here so that you could come into the transaction with no money. If you are bringing in everything without a transactional lender, what this will look like, oh, actually, let's just run it as a transactional lender. It's way easier to do that. So what's gonna go back to the transactional lender is $237,500. That's gonna go back to the transactional lender plus their fee, which would be, on the particular one that I've been using, 2.5% of the amount that they brought, which is $5,937. That's gonna be a 2.5% fee to your transactional lender. And then we also have, if you have a transaction coordinator, which I highly recommend you do on these kinds of things, and pick one that is really good. If you don't have one, I have a great person. They're gonna charge you about $2,500 per transaction. $1,400 of that is gonna be upfront. That means the rest of their money, the TC, is gonna be out of closing. So that's $1,100. And then the buyer closing cost reimbursement, this money right here is $35,625. So that's gonna either go back to the transactional lender. Obviously, if it did, that fee would be a little bit higher, but in this case, we're gonna pretend that the buyer brought this to the closing. That will go to them. Now, this is how the buyer gets paid. We're gonna take all this from 360, and what we're left with is $59,800. I actually think this is incorrect because this transaction has an agent involved, and agent commissions came in around $20,000. So, sidebar here for a minute, agent gets $20,000. If there was no agent, this deal should have paid the buyer $79,800. Of course, they get all their money back, their transactional lender gets paid back, all the closing gets paid for, and they would have gotten paid almost $80,000 to buy this if there was not an agent involved. This particular transaction, there actually is an agent involved, which means they get about $60,000. This will actually be a little bit off here because in the second closing, there are attorney fees over here, and we're probably missing a couple other ones, but this is roughly how it works in the second part. So why is this legal? This works because, number one, the DSCR lender allows seller second carries. The income supports the loan, so we know that the DSCR ratio is good on this, and the seller accepts subordinate risk. So as long as you've hit those metrics, that's great. Here's the danger. If your lender doesn't allow second position seller carry, or this kind of leverage, or cashback language in the contracts, this deal dies. It's not slowly, immediately, it's done. They're not gonna allow it, it's not gonna happen. That's why math being valid does not equal deal viability. You have to know who you're working with. So why the buyer gets paid? The buyer isn't getting paid because they're clever, they're getting paid because they're taking on a $360,000 balloon, assumably, because that's how most sellers operate in their negotiations today. If you can negotiate it without a balloon, kudos to you. This particular one was a 3-year balloon, so it was a short window of opportunity to make this make sense, and with refi risk and lender dependency. So this $59,000 is risk compensation, not profit. That is something you have to factor in, is how are you gonna take this and compensate for that risk in the future. So here's the takeaway. Morby deals aren't fake, they are fragile, and if you don't understand 2 closings, lender rules, escrow mechanics, and a refi risk, you're not doing creative financing, you're gambling. This is exactly the kind of deal people bring to me to review or structure before they move forward. If you want help pressure testing a deal like this is what I do. In the next episode, I'll show you why math valid deals still fail and how to spot execution risk early.